There are places in the world that seem to exist outside of time, islands wrapped in mist, where the wind carries ancient whispers and the stones appear to have eyes. One such place hides off the northwestern coast of Scotland, a sliver of rock known as Eilean Mor. Imagine a violent sea, carved by hundreds of rocky islets that resemble scars across the ocean. Among them, a solitary landmass stands in defiance, cold, forgotten, silent. And in December of 1900, 3 men vanished from it without a trace. No bodies, no footprints, just silence. Eilean Mor isn't just an island. It's a wound in maritime history, a scar that still throbs with questions more than a century later. The lighthouse was supposed to be a symbol of safety, a savior to ships. But on that December 26th, when the supply ship Hesperus arrived, it was dark, lifeless. The lighthouse flame was out, the island didn't respond, and something in the air felt wrong. There were no welcoming waves, no signals, just fog and dread. When the crew broke into the lighthouse, they found a place frozen in time. The beds made, the fireplace cold, the clock stopped, the meal on the table half-eaten, 2 coats gone, one still hanging, as if the last man left in a hurry, or was taken. The sea hadn't just swallowed their bodies, it had taken the answers too, and so began one of the most chilling maritime mysteries of all time. This is the story of the Flannan Isles, of the lighthouse that went dark, and of the men who vanished into the mist. Before they disappeared, they were just men, with dreams, fears, quiet hopes, and untold burdens. 3 souls who believed duty was stronger than destiny. But Eilean Mor was no ordinary place. James Ducat was the oldest, a man with a soldier's posture and a quiet voice, married, father of 4. He had served in other lighthouses before, but something about Eilean Mor unsettled him from the start. He never said why. Thomas Marshall was the second keeper, more reserved, almost reflective. He often spent hours staring at the sea as if searching for an answer he already feared. He kept a journal, and it's because of him. We know their final thoughts. Donald MacArthur was different, a former sailor in the Royal Navy, hot-tempered, headstrong, loyal, the kind of man who'd face a storm head-on. He was sent in as a last-minute replacement after another keeper fell ill. Maybe that man was lucky. Maybe MacArthur was marked. Together, they formed the triangle of duty atop Eilean Mor, a place with no trees, no shelter, just rock, wind, and silence. Their routine was rigid: watches, maintenance, meals, reports, and the endless sound of the sea. They were trained for this. They chose this life. But something changed in those final days. Ducat became silent. MacArthur, the bold one, was seen crying, and Marshall observed it all, writing like a man, trying to hold on to his mind. December 12th. Screaming wind. Something knocking outside, but nothing there. Ducat unsettled. MacArthur agitated. We are being watched. December 13th. The sea is alive. None of us sleep. The light is burning, but it feels dim, like it's fighting something. December 14th. Ducat hears singing. MacArthur has locked the door 3 times. Oil is running low, eyes in the rocks, or inside us. What happened to these men? Was it madness, or something much worse? The diary stopped. The light went out, and the silence took over. The sea doesn't speak. It roars, or it falls silent. And on December 26th, 1900, it was silent. The Hesperus supply ship departed from Oban with a simple mission: deliver goods, rotate one of the lighthouse keepers, and return. A routine voyage, one they had made countless times before. But as the ship neared the Flannan Isles, something felt wrong. The lighthouse was dark. No signal, no movement. Just a black tower against a gray sky. The crew expected to see men waiting on the dock. Instead, they found only waves and wind. No flag, no smoke from the chimney, no sign of life. Joseph Moore, the new keeper, stepped ashore and called out, "Ducat! Marshal! MacArthur!" Nothing. The door was locked from the inside. When they forced their way in, the world they entered was frozen. Beds, made, table, set, a meal, half-eaten, clock stopped, 2 coats missing, 1 remained. It was as if someone had left in a hurry or had no time to prepare. But there were no signs of panic, no overturned chairs, no broken glass, no blood, no footprints, just absence. Moore later wrote that the silence inside the lighthouse felt heavy, not empty, occupied. Upstairs, the light was intact, the oil full, the machinery untouched. Nothing was broken, nothing explained. The only clue came from the logbook. Thomas Marshall's last entries described voices in the mist, movement in the walls, singing that echoed from nowhere. He wrote, "The sea watches. We are not alone." And then, nothing. The entries ended, the light went out, and the silence that followed was not peaceful. It was as if the island had swallowed them whole. No storm, no struggle, just disappearance. And beneath it all, a presence that refused to leave. When logic fails, we turn to the journal, and in those yellowed pages we find the final tremors of reason, the last fragile breaths of sanity before everything unraveled. Thomas Marshall was meticulous. He logged weather, routines, every minor detail. But in the days before the disappearance, his writing changed. The lines grew shorter, uneven, shaky. The tone shifted from observation to desperation. December 12th. Sick wind. Knocks outside, nothing there. Ducat disturbed. MacArthur irritable. We've been seen. December 13th. The sea is alive. We haven't slept. The light flickers, not from failure. Something else. December 14th. Ducat hears singing. Voices whisper his name. MacArthur triple-locked the door. The air vibrates. These are not the notes of a rational man, but they are not delusions either. Because all 3 men felt it. They were changing. Ducat stopped speaking. MacArthur, once defiant, began to pray, and Marshall kept writing, clinging to language like it was the only thing keeping him sane. December 15th. Too quiet. The sea is still, like the world is holding its breath. Something is here, but it has no name. December 16th. Noise from below. We went together. Nothing found, but all of us heard it. December 17th. The light died. 7 seconds. When it came back, it wasn't ours. That was the last entry. No storm, no accident. Just a flickering light and silence. The number 7 became a myth. 7 seconds of darkness, as if something had crossed over. To some, the journal reveals madness. To others, revelation. Not hallucination, but exposure to something older than language, colder than the sea. The kind of presence that doesn't knock, it seeps in, through stone, through silence, through fear. Some believe the lighthouse was more than a guide. It was a seal, a boundary, and when the light failed, even for a moment, the seal broke. Eilean Mor may not be cursed, it may be a doorway. And the keepers, they didn't go mad. They were the first to see what lies on the other side. When something terrible happens, we run to logic. We crave order, cause, effect, resolution. But Eilean Mor doesn't care for order. In January 1901, the official report arrived. It was clean, simple, comfortable. A storm, they wrote. An extraordinary storm dragged the men to their deaths as they tried to secure gear on the lower landing. Case closed, but there was no storm. Meteorological records showed calm seas from December 12th to 17th. No gale, no swell, no chaos. No other lighthouse along the coast reported violent weather. No ship saw signs of trouble. So if not weather, what? The protocol was clear: never leave the lighthouse unattended. One man must always stay behind. Why did all three leave? And MacArthur, why did he go out without his coat? In winter, in freezing winds. Suicide, or something urgent enough, or terrifying enough, that he didn't have time to think? Down by the landing where they supposedly vanished, the damage was real. Iron railings bent, ropes shredded, stones displaced, but not by wind, not by water, by force, unnatural force. Yet, the report said nothing of this, only weather. A whisper in the paperwork, a quick stamp, and 3 lives, vanished from history. But the locals knew better. Fishermen said they'd seen lights above the island before the men vanished. Others claimed their radios had failed for days. One even said he heard screaming coming from the direction of the lighthouse on a windless night. But all of it was dismissed. Superstition, they said. Because the truth would be worse. Some theorized a fight. One man snapped. Murder, suicide, madness. But there were no signs of struggle, no broken furniture, no blood. Others spoke of sabotage, or a cult, or something, beneath the sea. But the silence was too clean, too symmetrical. It felt staged, as if the island itself was erasing. And maybe it was. There are places in the world that remember, that hold memory like wounds. Eilean Mor is one of them. The sea didn't take them. Something else did. And the official report? It was just a blanket, laid gently over something that never stopped breathing.
Some places were never meant for men. Spaces where time bends and silence becomes voice. Eilean Mor is one of those places. Long before the lighthouse was built, the island had a reputation. Fishermen avoided it. Locals whispered its name. They called it the Island of 3 Voices, because at night, they claimed, you could hear 3 sounds: weeping, singing, and calling. The weeping came from the sea, the singing from the wind, and the calling from the land itself. It was never settled, not because it was harsh, but because it was sacred or cursed. Stories passed from old to young spoke of guardians beneath the waves, selkies, creatures that shifted from seals to men, blue men of the Minch, who tested sailors with riddles and drowned those who failed. Others spoke of Nafur Gorm, blue-skinned watchers who roamed empty places on moonless nights, and those who saw them never came back. Myths? Perhaps, but the patterns repeat. Light, disappearance, silence. For centuries, strange blue lights were seen above Eilean Mor. Lights that didn't move like torches or lanterns. Lights that pulsed like breath. Marshall wrote of them too. The light in the sea breathes. It does not blink. It watches. In 1901, monks on the nearby Isle of Lewis reported seeing a blue pillar of light rise from the Flannan direction during the night. When asked, they said only, it was a sign, not for us, for them. Who were they? No one knows, but there is something deeper here. In Celtic mythology, certain islands were not land, but thresholds, bridges between the seen and the unseen. Some believe the lighthouse wasn't just for ships. It was a seal, a light to keep the dark in check. And when that light went out, even for 7 seconds, something crossed over. 3 men, 3 lights, 3 silences. What if the island doesn't curse, but calls, not to punish, but to balance? Maybe the lighthouse didn't fail. Maybe it was never meant to last. And the men? They weren't victims. They were part of something older, something watching, something that still whispers. When the light trembles, when you strip a man of time, of sound, of others, he begins to hear what was always inside. And sometimes, what he hears isn't human. After the disappearances, many reached for psychological explanations. Isolation, sensory deprivation, the crushing weight of silence. And yes, solitude can erode the mind. The brain, deprived of stimulation, begins to fabricate patterns, presences, threats. But this wasn't one man, it was 3, simultaneously, experienced, hardened, trained for this. If one had broken, the others would have restrained him. But here, no one stayed sane. And that's what psychologists can't explain. The collapse was too synchronized, too clean. Some believe Eilean Mor wasn't just remote. It was active, a place that doesn't warp the body, but the soul. In certain esoteric traditions, places like Eilean Mor are called thin places, where the veil between worlds wears thin, where emotions echo, where thoughts aren't always yours. And if 3 men trapped in such a place begin to fracture, the fracture doesn't stay inside them. It bleeds out. Marshall's final diary entries weren't about what he saw. They were about what entered him. Ducat is silent. MacArthur prays, "I don't feel alone inside myself anymore." A thought that wasn't mine spoke in my voice. Some say that's madness, others, possession, or something worse, awakening. In occult texts, there are warnings about structures built atop ley lines, invisible currents of planetary energy. Some stabilize, others amplify. The lighthouse itself may have been more than practical. It may have been symbolic. 3 men, 3 chambers, 3 rituals, the number 3, again and again. There are ancient designs where trios of humans act as anchors, holding something back, sealing a passage. When one breaks, nothing happens. When 2 fall, it wobbles. But when all 3 collapse, something opens. Maybe the lighthouse wasn't guarding ships. Maybe it was guarding us. In the years that followed, replacement keepers reported footsteps in empty rooms, voices through stone walls, lights flickering at 3:13 a.m. Not 3 a.m., not 3:15 a.m., 3:13. The time Marshall stopped writing. One technician, in 1971, after just 72 hours on the island, wrote in his log, "Whatever happened here is still happening." Most stories end with the disappearance, but this one continued. Not in reports, but in echoes. Eilean Mor didn't go silent. It woke up. After the disappearance, the lighthouse remained operational, but no one wanted to be posted there. Crews were rotated quickly. Supply ships doubled their runs, and slowly, strange things began to happen. In 1903, a technician was sent for repairs. He lasted less than 12 hours. When he returned, pale and shaking, all he said was, "The lighthouse is working, but it's not empty." In following years, keepers wrote of footsteps, always at night, always in threes, 3 steps, a pause, 3 more, but never a body, never a source. In 1925, a radio was installed. That's when the requests began. Something's moving near the lens. The sound is back. The lounge isn't empty. But inspection teams found nothing. One operator, after a month there, wrote to his wife, "The air is different after sunset. Heavy. Watching. I feel I'm never alone. Something is here. but it doesn't speak. The letter was never sent. It was found among his things after he abandoned his post mid-transport without warning. Visitors shared similar stories. Curtains moving when there's no breeze. A shadow staring from the top window. The light turning on with no power. In 1977, 2 engineers on inspection heard faint singing. They were alone. A recording from their visit contains 2 seconds of clear tapping, 3 knocks, then static, then a whisper. We never left. Paranormal groups visited in the 90s, with sensors, cameras, equipment. 1 camera, placed alone on the stairwell, captured movement. A shape, climbing, not rushing, just ascending, steady, as if returning. In 2021, motion sensors were installed. During the first week, multiple activations, no personnel inside, no birds, no drafts, just movement. At night, inside a sealed tower, the reports were buried, but the island remembers. And the light, it still burns, not for ships, but for something else, something that doesn't sleep and never left. Most stories end with answers. This one ends with questions, and maybe that's what makes it eternal. 3 men vanished, no bodies, no goodbye, no logic, and with them, something deeper disappeared. Our belief that the world is explainable. Was it madness, an accident, or something older? The lighthouse still stands, a tower of stone and silence, watching. But maybe it wasn't built to guide ships. Maybe it was built to hold something in. Because on December 26th, 1900, the light failed for 7 seconds, and something came through. A presence, a void, a truth we weren't meant to touch. Since then, Eilean Mor hasn't been empty. It's been waiting for someone to notice, for someone to remember, for someone to listen. The sea is calm now, but beneath it, silence pulses like a heartbeat. Some say the keepers went mad, others that they saw too much. And you, listening now, can you imagine standing in that tower, hearing wind that doesn't howl, but speaks? Can you picture looking into the fog and feeling it look back? Maybe the real fear isn't what happened, but what could happen again, because the light still trembles, the footsteps still echo, and some nights, if you stand very still, you'll hear 3 knocks, a breath, and a voice. We are still here. The mystery remains, not because it lacks answers, but because some truths we don't want to face. Thank you for watching Beyond Legends. If this story moved you, subscribe. Share your theory in the comments. What do you think happened at the Flannan Isles? Until next time, keep your light burning and beware the silence.